Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 9th episode of the PixelPlay podcast, the podcast where two grown-ass men talk about everything they love, hate, and the news in the gaming world. I am one of your hosts, Kaylan, aka Ktastrophy, joined by the Chewie to my Han, the Luigi to my Mario, my Clank to Ratchet, CSRadical.
I'm almost offended by that.
What? Why?
Just because I'm Italian doesn't mean I'm friggin' hairy like Chewbacca. What the hell is this crap? You have more facial hair than me, by the way. If anything, you're the Luigi.
No, you're my Luigi.
By the way,
I might be your
nobody knows this right now because we're all both on camera. I'm wearing red and you're wearing green. So who's actually Luigi on this one?
And to be fair, I am far hairier than you are, so yeah, it probably would work the other way. But no, like, I'm going with the idea that, like, I am the Han Solo in my world. You might be your own Han Solo, and I might be your Chewie, but it's just because I'm talking, you're my Chewie.
Well, if I had a fake gun next to me, I would have shot first by now, so unfortunately, I can't really go through with that one, so the meme will have to wait another day.
Another day. Adam, how are you doing today?
I mean, apart from the insult, I'm doing pretty well, I guess.
No, man, it's a compliment. It's a compliment.
It's all love around here?
Exactly. You're the one that's making it an insult. I was simply coming with a compliment.
All right, I'll take your word for it.
Compadres right here, you know. Adam, so this week we are going to be talking about Bethesda becoming an Xbox exclusive developer. We're going to be talking about PlayStation's new Canadian partnership with this brand new studio. And we're going to be talking about Concrete Genie, another one of our untimely reviews. We're going to be talking about all that and more. If you like what you hear, if you're first time here and you're liking this, or if you are one of our regulars from the start, please, we'd appreciate it if you could go to YouTube, subscribe, like, leave comments, leave reviews on Anchor or wherever you get your podcasts. Share it out with your friends. We would really appreciate that. Adam, before we get started, first question for you. How are you doing?
I think I answered that already. I'm still hurt.
You did. I was just trying to transition there. Thanks for calling it out. I really appreciate it.
No prob. Anytime.
Now, would it have been better if I had called you the Lando to my Han?
That's cooler at least.
See, the reason why I'm focused is I've got like a bunch of Star Wars pop figures on my desk, and I've got Han, Chewie, and Lando, so that's why I'm kind of going that route. Adam, what have you been playing this lately?
Apart from, actually, no, mostly just been what I've been playing on stream. I haven't been playing a lot of games recently. I played the Saints Row 3 remaster for a couple of streams now, and then I played a little bit of Enter the Gungeon, which was quite a lot of fun, too.
Nice. And where are you streaming that?
That's on twitch.tv/CSRadical. Thanks for the open plug, sir.
We're all about that shameless promotion here.
I do feel like I have to make you sad, though.
What?
I guess I'll start off the show with a little bit of sadness. I've officially dropped Tsushima and have no intention of getting it back.
What? Why is that?
And this is to ease some people's pain. This is in no way. This is not like Uncharted, me being like, it's not that great. I actually do think Tsushima is a good game. The problem is, I think I'm A, open worlded out,
okay,
and B, the story is like it's one problem with me in that it's too serious and too stoic, and I'm really not in the mood for that right now. I need something funny. And I've seen Tsushima, and there is no ounce of charm to be had. It's pure like struggle and sadness and pain and misery. And I'm like, I'm not down for this anymore.
You know what? That is a valid criticism. I think one of the things with the game is like it's not a light story, and there's not that light element, which I think kind of works for it in the sense that, you know, to have some sort of comic relief would maybe take away from the seriousness of it. Like, you're technically in a war-torn province, country, district, whatever, island.
Well, sure, so but if I hadn't played like every Assassin's Creed Under the Sun and Horizon and all these other open world games, I probably would have been more open to this concept. But now I'm like, this is just the same stuff that I've been playing over and over again, and the story makes me feel really, really negative things. This isn't fun anymore.
Yeah, I can see that.
Apart from the part where I get to stab people in the back of the head so many times. That part's fun. That part's super fun. Especially when I get to blow them up with explosive arrows. That's a lot of fun.
The gameplay, like, I think the gameplay is I would not say the story is one of the best parts of Ghost of Tsushima. I would think one of the best parts is the gameplay.
Yeah, I could argue with you that the gameplay, if there was a game of the year for gameplay, I think Ghost of Tsushima is definitely in that running.
Mm-hmm.
It runs
it
flawlessly well.
Yeah, and it has that good sword combat where it's accessible, but it's not easy and hack and slash. Like I think it's really well done, and then the stealth, like typically you don't have great stealth and great, melee combat, and I find that this one has both.
Yeah, no, that's for
Um,
sure. It was really just the actual like progression that was keeping me from wanting to do anything. Like I had enough time away from it. I think it was like maybe 2 weeks straight. I didn't pick up any game really in general because I was really busy for a stretch. And then I sat there and looked at my screen and went, "Do I really want to go back to that right now?" And I just eventually went, "No,
for
I don't
sure.
think I do." Which
You
is
you
a
want to
shame
talk about
because I still
depression
like
though,
a
and
lot
like
about it.
yeah, but speaking of like heavy kind of like tones in the story, I played back to back Last of Us Part Two, and then jumped into Ghost of Tsushima. So you want to talk about
So you're what we
feeling
call
crushing?
a gaming masochist. Okay.
Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. Um, no,
Or a
I can see
gamer,
those
I guess I should
criticisms.
say.
I hope you come back to it. Yeah. So I hope you do come back to it. It is awesome. How far did you get? Did you get past the
I
second
finished the
level, if you
first
know what I mean?
castle and was starting to do a little bit of the side stories then, and that was around the point that I'm like, I'm not. I Here's the biggest problem, honestly, with Tsushima. The side content is what really sells you on an open world game. Because that's it. Because you can just run through the main
Yeah.
story all you want, but that kind of defeats the purpose of the big world. You want to go and explore. When most side quests basically amount to get on your horse, ride towards this thing, go there, find nothing there, do a little bit of detective work that sometimes is not easy to figure out because it doesn't give you a lot of handholding on that one, which you
Mhm.
kind of should have when like some things are not easy to spot.
Yeah,
And then
like
you'll
the
find the blood
footprints.
trail or the footsteps. You'll follow that for way too long. Find out that the person that you were taking the quest from is now either dead or killed the person that you're looking for, and you fight somebody along the way, and that's it. And most side quests run under a similar thing. It just isn't. It isn't interesting. Like there's a lot of games out there with side quests where, yeah, some of them are just literally fetch quests, but some of them do have like some pretty engaging and interesting storytelling. Whereas a lot of the times it just seems like I need help finding this person. Oh, that person's dead. You go back and watch them cry.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. It's a very much a valid concern. As I said, I hope you get back to it. It is an awesome game, but you've seen Ghost of Tsushima for the most part. I would say that some of the skills later on, more towards the ghost, are pretty cool. Uh,
Yeah. I mean,
but
I pretty much
you
unlocked most of the abilities by that point anyway, because I did so much time in the open world.
yeah, it introduces some cool things afterwards, but I mean, you've tasted the meal. If you're not if you're not hungry for it right now, it's not going to
Well, I
be.
mean, I already spoiled myself on the rest of the story, and I wasn't really surprised by much of it either. So,
No, it is somewhat predictable for the most part. Speaking of stuff that we played, I tried Cyberpunk 2077 on the PS5.
wow. So
Um,
I'm not the one bringing it up first, man. That might be a first on this show.
yeah, so I'm gonna say it's not as bad as people have said. I
It may
did a
also be
couple of
better
the
now than it was when it launched.
exactly. So I would say it's playable now. Like I was playing it, and I was like, oh, this is actually pretty impressive. Like I'm pretty happy with how it looks. Just for everyone to know, like I'm playing on a PS5. I've got the 4K TV, so I'm getting like the optimal kind of situation I can with that game on PS5. That being said, I did find that it was a little janky. There was some like weird bugs and clipping and stuff. So I know that CD Projekt Red is anticipating coming out with a bigger patch imminently. So I've kind of put it on the back burners. I love the game. I love the theme so far, but I'm just gonna wait and see how this second patch improves it. Knock on wood, and jump into it there. But what I've been playing right now is I am revisiting God of War on PS5 with that remaster update. Oh,
Yeah, literally, I
have you
finished the
played God
game
of
and that
War?
update comes out. I was so mad.
Oh, it is incredible. It looks so good. I'm blown away by just how much it adds to it. Obviously, the gameplay and everything is still the same, but just graphically, it's just incredible. Because I played it when I played it the first time, you had the choice of choosing between, that 4K kind of thing, the performance or
Yeah, it's
resolution, whatever, and
resolution
I
mode or
chose
performance mode.
resolution. Yeah, so I went with resolution over performance because typically that 60 frames per second thing, it's hit or miss for me. I don't really care that much. And I'm playing it now with both, and it is awesome. So I,
I was
I
the
love
opposite.
it.
I
It
tried
was
to
a game
play
I
it in
liked.
4K, and I'm like, man, it's so much more fluid. I can't do it at 30 frames.
See, yeah, I'm uncultured in that sense. Like my eyes aren't trained to see that. Like I notice the difference, but it's not. I'm more impressed by a gorgeous Vista versus a smooth transition.
Well, if you
So
put me down in front of a 30 frame per second game, I'm not gonna notice. But like if you give me the option to go between the two, I'll be like, oh, the 60 frame is really nice and smooth though.
it is. No, I'm not arguing with that, but I always choose resolution over performance. So, Adam, we're kind of just rambling a little bit here. Let's get into it. Let's get into our topics. Probably the biggest news from the last week or so is the acquisition of Bethesda by Microsoft. I think we've talked about this briefly before.
Yeah,
It
it's
was
been
just
it's
sort of,
been brought up for a while now, but I think it's
yeah,
only been
this isn't,
official since like this week. So
yeah, it's not anything new in terms of, oh my, and this is a shock, but it is now sort of the ink is dried on the paper and it's official now. But what is coming out, that's maybe shocking more people, is the idea that Bethesda games are going to become Microsoft exclusives and they're going to be available on Games Pass or Game Pass. So I'm going to be reading. I've got an article here from Forbes. They're talking about exclusivity. And so they wrote, but of course the question of exclusivity came up, and while it was said that current deals would be honored, so for example, Deathloop is a timed PS exclusive, and cross-platform games would continue to be supported cross-platform, i.e., Fallout 76, that yes, a bunch of future Bethesda games, likely including big ones like Elder Scrolls 6 and Starfield, are going to be Xbox exclusive. Though Xbox exclusive these days means on any device that can access Game Pass. Phil Spencer said, Phil Spencer, leader of the Microsoft Xbox brand, this is about delivering great exclusive games for Xbox players that ship on platforms where Game Pass exists. They continue on. This idea is not without risks on Microsoft end. The notion that Game Pass can sustain development on games with massive budgets like Halo Infinite or Starfield on other scores, offering those for free on Game Pass instead of charging $60 to $70 a copy is not exactly a proven case yet. So I'm going to go into that a little bit later. Just real quick, what's your take on Bethesda going exclusive? Is this a surprise to you? Do you think that we're going to find out later that some Xbox or some Bethesda games are going to become available to PlayStation? Where do you think that's going to lie?
well, there's a few things I guess I can jot out there. When this announcement first came, I was surprised, like pretty much everybody would have been, because Bethesda's a pretty big player. When I really first heard it, my brain went, okay, so Microsoft knows they're fucked on the library aspect, so they're trying to accumulate something. And at the same time, like currently, Bethesda isn't exactly like pumping out like high quality stuff. A lot of their stuff has not been doing very well. Like sure, Doom's doing pretty decently, and Dishonored was doing fine, but like Fallout's been a mess. Elder Scrolls hasn't existed for like 10 years. So like there's definitely a
Starfield
trend
isn't going to
there.
be coming out for a while.
Yeah, like there's a real trend here that Bethesda is just not really at their best. Like this isn't like Microsoft getting Capcom right now. So initially I was kind of just like, well, that's kind of stupid, and I don't personally like monopolization to begin with, so there's that. Now knowing that the exclusivity thing is a thing, now I'm actually pretty pissed off, not because I care, but because I'm not too big on Bethesda stuff right now to begin with. Like, if Fallout 5 gets announced for Xbox only, I'm not going to be that mad. If Elder Scrolls 6 gets announced, I'll not be that mad, and I have a PC anyway, so it doesn't really change that. But for people who can only afford one console, and especially those who went the Sony route, because Sony kind of has earned that in the last generation, you're screwed. And that's okay if it's a small indie developer. That's okay if it's a new studio created from like former reps of another big studio. And we'll be talking about that with Haven when we get to Sony's side of it, where we have these second party studios that exist in like a first party house. But this is literally a major company buying a major company and taking a massive lineup of major titles and major series away from other users. To which I go, that's what I don't like about monopolization, is it takes away more than it offers. And
Yeah, you bring up a good point actually right there. I'm just gonna interject. Like I wasn't thinking about it from that perspective. I was like, yeah, of course they're gonna buy Bethesda. They need that exclusivity that PlayStation has had. But I think one of the key things is that PlayStation, for the most part, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't really know if they've taken or
they
bought.
haven't bought something of that level. Most of their studios are in-house.
Yeah, no, but like they haven't come out before and bought a studio that is known for doing, open third party kind of things, whereas
Well, not even
on
a
every
company with just like a
platform.
big name to it, to my knowledge. It's not like they're going out like the example now would be if they go out and buy Square Enix or Capcom or Bandai. Well, actually, no, Bandai Namco is not really the same level, but you get the drift. You get what I'm trying to say. It's just
The only one that I
Bethesda's
can think
literally
of.
like an E3 press conference company. Like this would be Sony getting Square or EA, which I don't think is really possible. But apparently, I didn't think Bethesda would be possible either, and here we stand. So.
Yeah, because the biggest one I could think of from a Sony perspective, and I might be wrong, is the only one that I think of that they bought in terms of a large, successful, established one was Sucker Punch. Was it Sucker Punch? No, it was Insomniac. Yeah, Insomniac did Spider-Man. So yeah, that was their big one. But I mean, it wasn't really a surprise to anyone because, with the exception of what the heck was that called? Something Sunset. Do you remember that Xbox
Oh,
game that they
Sunset
had?
Overdrive. Well, it's
Sunset
strange
Overdrive.
because like Insomniac has been doing stuff for Sony for a long time because they did all the Ratchet and Spyros and Resistance for that matter too.
Yeah,
So
but those were all
it doesn't seem well no like all of those were
second
PlayStation
party.
specific.
No, but as a
Oh,
studio,
sorry,
they
you
were
mean
a
like they
second
weren't
party
owned by
studio.
Sony? Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, no
But
one's
they were still
shocked. It's
making
like, yeah,
exclusively for Sony. So it's not again like Bethesda wasn't making anything exclusively for Xbox. It was always
exactly.
multi-platform. That's why it's so weird to me this sudden thing because it's so unique in what it is.
So, do you think that we're going to see the next Fallout, the next Elder Scrolls? Do you think that's going to be an Xbox
I
exclusive,
think they
or does
want to
Xbox
do
go?
that. And they're just it will depend on the number because here's the thing. Let's assume that the console war like the last generation is similar where the Xbox Series X isn't selling as strong. What does Microsoft think? Do they maybe time exclusive it because eventually they'll want to make more money? Because I said it might have been here. I can't remember how much we talked about it, but it still remains the same. Are you really going to keep a like let's say by the time Elder Scrolls 6 ever comes out, let's assume in the next 5 years because I think that was the rough timeline. By then, we'll probably have at least 20 million if not more PlayStation 5 sold. Do you really want to not sell just a fucking disc to that audience who are 100% going to buy that?
Yeah,
Like let's say 20 million is a hard number. You can almost guarantee that half of that audience will buy Elder Scrolls 6. Do you really want
yeah.
to give up that money? I don't know
Well,
if you
this is the
do.
thing. It's not up to Bethesda though to give it out. That's
No.
Microsoft money.
But if you're still
But one of the
Microsoft, that's a lot of money you're passing on then.
But if you think about it, Microsoft and the Xbox has somewhat, and I mean, I'm coming once again as the Sony pony, is coming from a perspective where they are the second console, right? You get the PlayStation because that's where you get the exclusives, and then if you want a second console, you get the Xbox for maybe, I don't know,
Sure.
like a couple. So what's happening is Sony's dunking on them with things like Ghost of Tsushima, with The Last of Us Part Two. They've got those exclusives. Horizon Zero Dawn. Microsoft doesn't. They have Halo. They have Halo. They have Gears of War, Forza, and I I don't know, like Sea of Thieves. So they don't have that cap in their feather like Sony does, and I think this is a way of them to get those titles. Like, hey, you want exclusive titles? We have exclusive titles.
Yeah, but then the
Fallout
argument could
is
also be
going to be a
made
huge
you
boon.
still don't have the creme de la creme. You have like mediocre like 6 7 out of 10 titles which still doesn't distinguish you. But at least it gives you something now cuz now if they do a press conference at E3, they can maybe show one or two more exclusives that makes people go, "Oh!" rather than
Yeah,
another
for
Halo
sure.
trailer and a bunch of indie games and like small studio stuff that you're just like, "Well, I mean that looks cool."
Yeah, I think Xbox is in a tight spot where they don't have the big heavy hitting titles like PlayStation does, not yet. I know like their Initiative Studio and stuff is working on things, but that's gonna take some time. Um, and they've had some of the indies, but I mean Nintendo is kind of capitalizing on that market. And Sony has the big exclusive AAAs, and Nintendo has the indies. So like Microsoft is slowly finding themselves without a place, and I think for them having Bethesda makes sense. This was going to lead into another question that I'm going to ask you: is who's the bigger winner here? Is it Bethesda or is it Xbox?
I mean, it's probably Microsoft, but whoever is the CEO or the president of Bethesda right now is walking away with a shit ton of money, so he's probably in a good spot. So I don't know if it's Bethesda that's a good winner, but whoever made the sale and is getting most of the money from that is going to be cashing out pretty beautifully.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and I think it's really going to be Bethesda who's going to come out on top
It
comparatively.
comes down to like the quality of Bethesda's games, because if Bethesda's still chugging out sevens, then yeah, they'll win because they're just getting a crap ton of money from a company that they're not putting their end of the deal on.
Well, I wasn't even thinking just from like a monetary standpoint. I'm just thinking from a development standpoint, because the problem with Bethesda is that they've been struggling. Like they've got an old engine that's not really well optimized. It struggles um, with PlayStation hardware. At least it did for both 4 and definitely the PlayStation 3. And so now, if they have one sort of platform that they need to work on, or even let's say two with Xbox and PC, like that is much easier for them. They don't have to worry about PlayStation not being cooperative in terms of the modding community, which I know they were an issue with. So like they now have a dedicated ecosystem that they have to work towards. They don't have to work towards several different iterations of hardware and software. It's we are designing it for Xbox consoles, and that's all we have to worry about, and that's what we have to optimize for. And I think that might benefit Bethesda from an open world standpoint with things like Skyrim or Elder Scrolls or um, Fallout. So I think you're going to see an improvement in their quality of games, hopefully. But in terms of Xbox, I don't know how much Xbox is going to benefit. Like, sure, it's good. Like, they have more
They'll
titles now.
benefit if Bethesda's titles end up being really like strong again. If Elder Scrolls 6 is that 10 out of 10 must play, then that benefits
Mhm.
Xbox a lot because now they have something to be like, you want to play this the best game of the year, you got to come to us.
Well, do they though? Or if let's say Bethesda comes out with their game of all time, like their best one they've made yet, and Xbox is like, "Yep, it's behind, the Xbox is behind Game Pass, it's behind us. We took it." That might not look well in terms of their publicity when it comes out, because what's going to happen is this story's going to reemerge that Xbox took a third party publisher and made them exclusive, and now like it seems anti-consumer, which is something that Xbox has been working as a brand to develop as, hey, we are the pro consumer console.
I can see that point, but then my brain just immediately goes back to like anti-capitalism brain, which is just like there's just gonna be some jack off in an office being like, I don't care, I'm making so much money, and just
For
being happy
sure,
about it.
for sure.
So
But
that's
in
like
terms
from a
of like
gamer
the
perspective, it's
success,
gonna suck if that's the case. But from like a company perspective, I'm sure they'd be laughing their way to the bank. So that's kind of like that weird like depends on how you look at it sort of scenario.
yeah. So looking at it from the financial side, do you think it's a good idea to have X or have like Fallout and the Bethesda games as Game Pass day and date kind of games?
Uh like you're talking releasing it on Game Pass day one.
Yeah, like is that do you think that's the way, like if you have this massive
I don't think
publisher
they
now?
will release like say let's say Elder Scrolls 6 because that's the title I keep using. I don't think that would be Game Pass day one because that would maybe they would do it, but that's a lot of money you'd also be missing out on. I mean, because that's a $70 game. Like
Yeah,
that's a big $70 game. If you're giving that away for what 10-15 bucks,
yeah.
it's also a
Like
little
that
bit counteractive. But if they're trying to be the we're just trying to be the pro consumer friendly thing, well then I guess I won't complain if I can play Elder Scrolls 6 for $10-15 that month. I'm good, I guess. I'm not gonna
you're not
bitch.
finishing that game in a month though.
I mean, I could.
Well, you think about it, like
Well, actually, well, wait. If you tell me ahead of time when it is, I'll just use all my vacation time and just really try really, really hard
hey
just to prove the point.
Adam, you take this time off? Yeah, yeah, I am. You going anywhere? Kinda.
I mean, I'm going to. I don't know any of the fucking like Tamriel. I
Yeah.
don't know. That's like the one that's coming
Oh,
to mind.
weird. Never heard of it. Oh yeah, it's this Nordic country kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna just give my biggest Fus Roda chant, and they'll be like,
Yeah.
"What's that? Let's go with Icelandic, okay?"
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I went to DC. Oh yeah, how was it? I don't know, kind of a little bit of a wasteland.
But yeah, I
No,
don't know.
I'm
Like
of the mindset.
I get the feeling that they probably will do their Game Pass initiative with it, but it'll just be really interesting when that first big gem, like if Fallout 5 comes out and it's just as bad as 76, no one's gonna care. But if it ends up being a gem, that's when you're gonna see like other players that don't own like an Xbox or don't have a good enough PC to really run it well that are gonna be like, well, that's not really fair. And I know the argument
Yeah.
goes that exclusivity has never been fair. I mean, Xbox gamers aren't getting to play The Last of Us, but
Mhm.
Bethesda already used to make stuff for that. It's the same thing that people are still really upset that Rare got bought up and got used away. It's the same with like a lot of other companies that get bought up in the old days, where just some studios don't ever pump out the same stuff anymore.
Yeah, it's one of those things, you're not giving anything to the players, you're just taking something away from them in that sense.
Yeah.
Let's go a little bit deeper into this whole Game Pass thing, because like, do you think that this is a sustainable model? And the reason why I bring this up is continuing in that Forbes article, they continued talking about Game Pass and releasing the games on Game Pass. That the idea of releasing them on Microsoft end is not without risk. The notion that Game Pass can sustain the development of games with massive budgets like Halo Infinite or Starfield or Elder Scrolls, offering those for free on Game Pass instead of charging $60 to $70 each for copies, is not exactly a proven case yet. Sony has said outright that they can't see themselves offering first-party games in that kind of model due to the cost alone. And yet Microsoft is willing to spend whatever it takes to double, triple, quintuple Game Pass subscriptions in the long term and try to reshape the entire industry to their own model, which is what we saw Netflix do in the TV and movie space. And they did it by spending a ton of money on content without charging individually for release. So what do you think? Like, do you think Game Pass is the future of gaming, or do you think it's more detrimental towards what we see in these AAA game spaces?
Well, there's kind of two different answers to that question. I mean, one, I hope it is because it's cheaper. So, of course, I'd be down for that. Is it sustainable? That's dependent on if they can get people to buy it. If it really is as simple as that. Like, if Xbox can have, like, let's say 50 million subscriptions, like, I don't know, like, what's the number of current Netflix subscriptions right now? Let's see.
Oh God.
Current
Let's take a look.
number of Netflix. Yeah, thank God I have the current number of Netflix subscribers. 203 million. I think. I think it's worldwide. It's 203 million as of 2020 in the fourth quarter.
Plus, you got a bunch of people stealing accounts.
And I don't know how many Xbox like Ones got sold in that generation, but let's just
do it this
say.
way. Let's do it this way, because like it's not, you can't just go with the consoles, because the consoles themselves, like you can get Game Pass technically on a PC.
Yeah.
So let's go with Game Pass. Game Pass right now, you have about $12 to $17 for a Game Pass. Right now there are 90 million Xbox Live subscribers as of April 2020.
Is that Xbox Live or Xbox Game Pass?
Xbox Live. So
okay.
Let's assume that most people who buy an Xbox get the Xbox Live, right? So we can say there's about 90 million people who could be potential customers, and that would then sort of wrap in the people who would buy it via PC. Fair? Is that a pretty fair assessment?
Yeah.
So if we look at that, 90 million Xbox users, let's say they're spending anywhere from $12 to $17. We'll use the higher end model. If you had everyone on Xbox Live ordering Game Pass at the premium model of $17, you're looking at about $306 million per year for Game Pass.
That's not good enough.
Now, no, and like if we look at it, let's look at Fallout. Like I just pulled some numbers here. So Fallout 4 did $750 million dollars in sales. Wolfenstein in its first week did $19 million in sales. Doom Eternal did $3 million in its first week. Doom 2016 did $1 million in a month. So, like, I don't think with Bethesda necessarily that doesn't make sense. Like, I think with the big tentpoles like Fallout and Elder Scrolls, like those ones, yeah, they're going to lose money on those. And so that raises the question of what does scale and scope look like, right? Because now you have a certain threshold that we cannot spend more than this to turn a profit.
If we're being completely honest, Xbox Game Pass needs to have 150 million plus to really make it worthwhile, like minimum. Unless they're going to up the charge, which is going to go over even worse, you need like at least triple digits, and if not more than that, like 100 million may not even cut it. Because like you said, if they're at the best case scenario with 90 million, they're only hitting 300 million. That's just not good enough.
No. When you look at the price of developing a game and then how much the sales, like you're still getting more sales from the physical copies, and that's also through Steam. So like, this is just overall sales that they sold that much.
I mean, I feel like they just have to go with the option. Like I said, you'd have to like time release it on its own for like 6 months to try to at least get the early money in from the release, and then put it on Game Pass for those who wait for it. Because
But the
otherwise, like
alternative,
if you put every game on Game Pass right away, like yeah, maybe some people will buy it because they'd rather not have a monthly subscription because in their heads they're thinking, oh, that's another $15 a month that I'm adding to my monthly budget. But it
yeah,
still looks a lot better than paying a consistent round of 90 of like 70, 80, $90.
for sure. But I think the other thing though is that if you do that, where if you do a staggered release of, hey, we're gonna have it 6 months before it comes on Game Pass, then your numbers of Game Pass, like the Game Pass, doesn't become as enticing of a sale,
Maybe you only
especially
do a
for
month. Maybe you just release it for a month and then put it on. Like maybe you have to do something really short. It's
yeah.
it's a
But then
really
once
weird
again,
scenario
it's
that they put
you s-
themselves in because it really just comes down to they need more people to be on Game Pass to begin with. But if they don't have enough people on Game Pass, then they're not going to make as much money. So then maybe they should put stuff on release. But if they do that, maybe they don't get any Xbox game. They've kind of put themselves in a corner.
yeah. And I think it also does something though to the game development too, right? Because now you've got a certain budget and you can't, like, the sky's not the limit in terms of how much you sell. You've kind of got to cap that. We're only going to make at most this amount. So then it becomes, you're going to start seeing development budgets become smaller. Um, Perhaps. I mean, this is just speculation, but
Well, the
if
problem
they
is
know,
I guarantee what that means is that it's going to make working conditions worse for the people that are working there on these games too, which is not going to be a great thing.
yeah, that's a very fair point. But I think you're also going to see scale and scope get smaller and smaller, right? Like you're
That
going to
wouldn't
start seeing
necessarily
more
be
and
a
more
bad thing
games
because it would
similar.
create better experiences if you're not. Because there are some games like I think we mentioned it last week where sometimes they just worry about how big their map is, where it's like, no, make the map count. So
Yeah,
maybe if you
no, you're definitely
spend
right.
less time on resourcing and trying to like build this ridiculous game that has all these random ass fucking like little repetitive things over and over again around this like massive like map. Maybe you reduce it a little bit, make a more streamlined performance, and now you're not spending a crap ton of money on extra time that you're building for all these little buggy areas you got to keep patching.
So Adam, just want to clarify something in my statement when I was doing Fallout 4. So that $750 million in sales that I was talking about for Fallout 4, that was in the first 24 hours of it released.
That
So
much in
yeah,
24 hours.
so this is coming from Wikipedia, so it's somewhat linked, so don't worry. Fallout 4 sold 1.2 million copies on Steam alone in its first 24 hours of release. The game also sold more digital and physical copies on day of launch. With almost 470,000 concurrent Steam players on launch day, Fallout 4 broke Grand Theft Auto 5's record for having the most concurrent online players in a Steam game not developed by Valve. Bethesda shipped 12 million units to retailers within the first 24 hours, grossing $750 million.
That is insane.
So yeah, so that $750 price is probably even underestimating how much Fallout 4 made. So
So realistically, if you put the next one on Game Pass, you're already cutting your 24-hour thing by half
mhm,
at
yeah,
worst, or sorry, at best.
hmm
Yeah,
yeah.
it's not
So
a great
I
model
don't know.
right now.
I think from a consumer standpoint, it's a great model. Like,
Oh, it's
hey, I'm paying this much
fantastic.
to, but is it good for the industry and sustainable? I don't really know, and I don't think so.
I mean, as a gamer, I would look at it and be like, I don't really care unless it crashes and burns and then we lose all of it. But that's a later problem. I'll take the deal right now almost. If they're
Yeah,
willing to do it,
yeah.
me as a gamer, I take advantage of that. If they want to put Elder Scrolls 6 for basically free on Game Pass as long as I subscribe to it, sure, I'll take that deal because now I'm not spending $70. I'm down for that. And
For
if
sure,
that means that,
for sure.
5 years down the road, Game Pass crashes and burns and that part of the industry just kind of goes away for a while until they figure out how to make it better, well, tough shit for them, but it doesn't bother my dollar. Unless it screws us down the road where they start instituting like $100 friggin' price tags for games.
Well, I think the other problem is that we have a race to the bottom in terms of if this proves to be, like, a lot of people go for it, and then Sony tries to do it, and then you have a situation where everyone's trying to make the cheapest game, so they, like, you end up having like a Netflix situation where they just it becomes just a content quantity, not quality, and so they just start loading games on there to say we have X amount of games, and they're not very good.
Well, that was my worry with Microsoft anyway, especially when they got Bethesda. It's like, are you guys really getting are you trying to like differentiate yourself by having like big exclusives, or are you just going for big in terms of name and not in terms of quality?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. Do you think Bethesda kind of makes sense for Microsoft's portfolio, given the titles
For
that they
their
have?
audience, yes.
Yeah,
for the audience that they
yeah,
still mostly go after, yeah, 100%. Fallout and Doom is way up their alley.
yeah. I. But do you think that's from a getting sales and because like they're obviously doing this so they can sell consoles and Game Pass? Is this going to drive new people to Xbox?
It only works if it gets the PC crowd. That's really going to be the difference maker. I don't think console wise it really changes much, but because Game Pass is available on PC and has some pretty decent options, if they can pull that audience instead of having them on Steam, then you can do that. But Epic's been trying badly to do that, and we keep finding out how much money they're not making because people are just grabbing the freebies.
Hmm. Yeah, but the whole model is that you're paying for those freebies on Game
Yeah,
Pass.
but I mean, like, it's just proving the point though that like people are so like PC wise, they're so in love with Steam that it's really hard to pull them away from that service.
Yeah, because I mean
I
they're
think
already
I
built
think
up.
if a
They've
lot
got
of
that
people had
library.
the
They're
choice whether
established.
they get Fallout on Steam or Fallout on Xbox Game Pass, they might still choose Steam even though it's more expensive, just out of brand loyalty.
I don't know about that. I think what it'll come down to for the PC community is modding. Does Xbox Game Pass support modding? And if it does, great. Like I can see them. I can see a lot of people jumping ship. If
It's
not,
possible.
then yeah,
I
I think
mean,
they're gonna stay with
we're all like trying to be clairvoyant here and figuring out what other people think. I'm just kind of going off kind of like what I've seen from my recollection of memory. So for all I know, I'm completely full of shit. So
Hey, Adam, we're both nerds here. We know what we're talking about. We're not fancy suit business people. We're just nerds, and that's enough
yeah, I'm
credentials
definitely
for
not a
us.
fancy suit business person. My friggin' wallet tells me that one.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think this. I don't know if this is the best move. Like, I mean, it's obviously a good move for Bethesda to have more titles and stuff, but I don't think this is going to move the needle in terms of selling Xboxes. Like,
Yeah, no, I
I
don't. I
think,
don't listen to this update and go, "Oh yeah, Xbox is definitely becoming competitive in this war now." My brain just goes, "Okay, so that's something that Sony doesn't get. I guess they'll be fine because they have 10 other studios that are working on things right now that could probably blow the next Fallout out of the water. They might even be working on something like Fallout that might be better than Fallout for all we know." So
speaking of things that Sony is working on, I think I'm going to use that as the transition right there. Um, yeah, I think it got announced today that Sony is partnering up with a new studio, and it's in our backyard, or figuratively, at least on our side of the road. So Jade Raymond is now setting up a new independent gaming studio here in Montreal. So they are calling their new studio Haven. She's going to be working with. She's going to be leading the studio and working with people that she's worked with in the past.
it's
So
funny
she
she called it
writes
Haven.
on the.
I could have sworn when I saw that you named it Haven, I'm like, I thought it was just going to be like anywhere but Stadia.
Yeah. So she wrote on the PlayStation blog today. I'm paraphrasing here. So today, or I'm not paraphrasing, I'm just taking an excerpt. So today I'm announcing Haven, an independent studio where many of the talented game developers I've worked with for years and love dearly are coming together to do what we are most passionate about. It's time for us to refocus on games in a place where we can practice our craft without any barriers or impediments. What we want to create a world where players can escape, have fun, express themselves, and find community. We want to pour our passion into a project. We want to make something wonders for people to experience because we believe in the power of games to bring joy to people's lives. And Sony does too. Their commitment to excellence is unmatched. It's why we couldn't be happier for their backing our support. Together, we want to create games that are a haven for players, and we want to build a studio that is a haven for developers. So while we don't have any details to announce yet, I want the PlayStation community to know that Haven Studio is already hard at work on an unannounced IP. So obviously, how does this compare to Bethesda?
I mean, it didn't
That's very
require pulling
sarcastic.
something away from people, so that's a plus, I guess.
Yeah, like, are you excited about this? Where do you think this is gonna go?
I couldn't tell you anything. Like I know that Jade worked on like Assassin's Creed and Watch Dogs and stuff, so who knows? It could be another open world game. But I mean, it's all speculation at this point. I mean, I know what it's not going to be. It's not going to be a Japanese RPG. Like that's about as far as my brain can figure that one out. For all we know,
Yeah.
it could be something similar to like what a Concrete Genie is. It could be a racing game. It could be I don't have any idea.
So I'm really excited about this. I think it's awesome to have another studio here in Canada. For those of you listening, if you guys don't know, Adam and I are both Canadian. We're recording in Ontario. So Quebec is just right next door to us, which is where Montreal is. So that's super exciting. I think it's great. Jade's awesome. Like I was looking at her. her resume in the sense of what she's worked on and some of my favorite franchises she's had her fingers in. So I'm really excited. So like if we look at some of the things that she's done, she did Assassin's Creed. She was the producer. Metal Gear Solid 4: Guns of the Patriot. She was a managing director. She was an executive producer of Assassin's Creed 2, Assassin's Creed Bloodlines, and Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Blacklist. She was also the executive producer of Watch Dogs, managing director of Assassin's Creed Unity, managing director of Far Cry 4, and then executive producer for the Mighty Quest for Epic Loop. I don't know that one. And yeah, she was involved with Star Wars Battlefront as an SVP group general manager. So if I'm looking at this, I'm throwing out there, and I'm just guessing, maybe wishful thinking. I'm hoping we're seeing some sort of third-person stealth kind of adventure game that seems up her wheelhouse. And I know it's crazy, but hear me out. There's really not much in terms of that stealth action sort of gameplay. Splinter Cell's gone. Metal Gear's gone. Hitman is really the only one. Thief is gone. Like, it's a niche market that's not there. I don't think it would be super difficult for an independent studio to make a more closed, linear, sort of sectional game like that.
If they want to go and actually like impress us with that stuff, make an actual spy game.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Not a military, not a Splinter Cell. I'm talking straight up friggin' suits and gadget spy game, like old school spy stuff.
Like a James Bond style game.
Yes.
I can see
But
that.
like have their own style to it. Something to like if I don't know if anybody remembers 13 on the PlayStation 2. It did get a recent remake. Or it's like a cell shaded kind of thing like that. I don't know. Like I will say though, when I looked at her list of stuff, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of games on that list that were not the greatest. I mean, there's a couple of good ones there. My only worry is that her last two major projects were a absolutely despised Star Wars game and a free to play microtransaction guzzling game. So I'm hoping that she is now, because she's away from EA, that she might not be in that aura anymore. Maybe Haven is like an anti-EA thing from getting away from the crease. Oh wait, Mighty Quest for Epic Loop I think was Ubisoft. Now that I think about it, I may be mixing
it was Ubisoft. But if you look at it, like she says, right in her thing, we want to create games that are a haven for players, and we want to build a studio that is a haven for developers. Obviously, it's a little cheeky in the whole like.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure EA thinks that FIFA is a haven for football fans, so you got to be careful with those words too.
No, but I think what she's kind of saying is that like I'm tired of doing the whole corporate kind of, I don't want a nickel and dime, and I don't want to like deal with the BS of working in program or like in game development. So I think she's trying to build a studio that is anti that. So I can kind of see it coming out doing well.
Sure, 100%. I just have to keep the pessimism in my brain because corporate speak just makes my skin crawl. So I got to be careful on openly trusting everything that comes out of that, because anytime you see a PR statement, it's usually loaded with a lot of misinformation or a lot of things that are just trying to make like them as much as possible, so that when they inevitably put something out that's kind of irritating, that you kind of go, well, they did say all these nice things, and honestly, I'm being kind of a dick in a way anyway, just because I'm like, man, like I hate PR. I really hate PR, like press releases, because they're just, the language is so flowery. It's like, guys, like you don't have anything to tell us. You're basically buttering up your company so that we're aware of you and we think nice things about you for now. So my thing is, I don't really give a damn what you say until your first game comes out and I actually see that thing in person. You're in put up or shut up mode. I don't care.
Well, Miss Raymond, I am far less cynical than my co-host Adam. If you'd like to join us and tell us more about your studio, we are more than welcome to invite you on the podcast.
I am burned, my friend. I am horribly burned and disfigured.
I was going to say who hurt you, but you just told us who hurt you. So, no, I'm very excited. I can't wait to hear more. But once again, I think that's part of my job as the Sony PR or Sony pony rep here. So
I mean, I'll champion Sony as much as I want, but you got to prove it first before I champion you. That's how this works. You got to earn the respect before I give it. That's just how it works.
Yeah. Awesome. Adam, any other thoughts on this new studio, Bethesda? Basically, I guess we're gonna, not the console wars, but the studio wars.
I mean, if it ends up being amazing, I'll take any more Canadian bias there that we'll talk about how great the studio is constantly.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you think about it, like Canada, for like, if you think about the size of it, like we have a pretty robust gaming
I mean,
industry.
not where we live. It's mostly Vancouver and Montreal, but
No, we got Toronto.
yeah, but there's not real like oddly enough, like the ones that people immediately think of are usually Montreal too. Like Montreal's usually where like the
Yeah,
central ones seem to be.
yeah. And then there's some out in like the EA and BioWare are out in Alberta, are they not?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. So no, it's just one of the things like I'm always surprised by, given the size and like you wouldn't think of Canada as it being a pretty robust. Like you typically think of U.S. and you think of Japan, but I think Canada has a pretty big industry, and I'm kind of excited about it.
Oh, we're definitely putting some numbers in
So
now.
yeah. So yeah. All right. Um. No, I think it's interesting. I think this kind of ties in nice, and like Sony's creating something, and I think that's always good to have more studios and more talent and more being developed within the industry. Speaking of things that are developed in the industry, like new games coming out, I've got another untimely review for you. So, as I mentioned, I recently played and beat Concrete Genie. Adam, have you ever played this game?
I have currently been kind of playing it like just casually with my girlfriend because it's definitely up her alley too, and we've been pretty much enjoying that so far. We're maybe
Okay.
like two
Do you
hours
want me to
in.
keep this spoiler free?
Nah, don't worry. But it's I can't imagine it being anything like life changing in the spoilers.
Shocker! It's a prequel to Fallout.
Shocker, the genies actually turn on you and kill you at the end.
What? No. Yeah.
It's
So
it,
it's a
it's a
fine game.
euphemism for the mafia. The genie's like, "Hey kid, we're gonna put you in this barrel, load you up with concrete, and throw you at the bottom of the lake." Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I see you've played the game. No, Concrete Genie is it's an okay game. I liked it. It was about probably about 5 or 6 hours for me to play. Um, it does some neat things. It's a very cool, artsy kind of experimental game, but I think that also kind of hinders it a little bit. So if you're not familiar, Concrete Genie is you're basically this, I don't know, 12-year-old, 12 to 14 year
I
old
think
kid
I feel
hanging
like he's a
out in,
teenager.
yeah, like, but early teen. Like he's not like
Yeah,
18 or anything like that. Like he's a young teen, and you're hanging out in this old fishing village called Danska, I think it's called. And so you basically the town's seen better days, and it's all kind of falling apart. And then you get picked on by some bullies, and you're some sort of artsy fartsy kid, and they destroy your sketchbook, and all your pages get scattered throughout the wind. And long story short, you end up meeting this magical genie who is brought to life by your art, and he gives you the ability to kind of bring life to the city by painting art on the walls. So what I liked about the game is I liked the design of the game, like the whole idea, like it's almost looks like a little bit like an arts and crafts kind of game. Um, Very much has like an animation style. It's not going for hyper realistic, but it's also not like just straight cartoons either. Adam, what do you think of the graphic design choices, like the design choices?
it is a gorgeous game for an independent studio. Like 100%. It's probably one of the more gorgeous independent games that we have right now.
Mhm. Yeah, and so in terms of gameplay, you're walking around the city, and it's kind of weird because there's the main crux of the game is that you're doing graffiti on these walls, to sort of bring life back. Now, when I started playing the game, I felt that it wasn't very clear in terms of what I had to do and what was the objective. So I was going around painting everything, and then I had to like light up these light bulbs, but it wasn't clear to me like that's what you had to do to kind of complete that artwork in the sense. Um, and then there was an aspect where you were kind of stealthy, kind of hiding from the bullies who were kind of roaming around the town, and I didn't really like that aspect. I felt like it kind of detracted from the game. Granted, I know that there has to be some sort of opposition or challenge, and that's the one there, but I felt that the stealth mechanics weren't super well done in that sense, and there was no real issue in terms of getting caught or getting like anything like that. So there was no real challenge or consequence to the bullies. Now, in terms of like the art, I thought the art was cool. You get about 4 or 5 different pages with different thematic things. You can have like stars, you can have campfires, grass, trees, flowers, whatever. And it was kind of neat that you can kind of create these little motifs and these little sceneries. But I felt that the game kind of sometimes held my hand too much, and then it's like, we want you to have this, and this, and I'm like, okay. By the end, I'm not really creating any sort of art myself. I am literally just throwing whatever the heck they're asking for on the wall and just calling it done. And so I felt that it kind of held my hand a little bit too much on that sense. Adam, what do you think of like the gameplay in total in terms of both the art and like the navigation through the game?
It's not anything like game change. Like it's not something you're gonna go, wow, like this is incredible for like when it was released. It's a nice independent game. Like it's something that you go in there as like you play in one or two settings and be done with it and you forget about it. Like it's a nice experience at the time, but it's not something you're gonna take with you and be like, man, like 5 years down the road to be like, I remember Concrete Genie, like what an incredible experience it is. It doesn't really do that. Like the reason me and my girlfriend enjoy playing is because my girlfriend really likes the art, so there's a lot of giggling too because the weird faces that these like creations that you do make and the sounds that come out of it. It's kind of similar to what Bug Snacks was, where it's got a lot of charm to it, but the gameplay is not like something you're gonna go like, oh man, they revolutionized this, or man, like they did this really well. It's just a painfully average like game with a nice charm to it.
Yeah, I think that's a very accurate way of putting it. It's very similar to Bug Snacks. I felt Bug Snacks, the game mechanism though was better. Like I think Bug Snacks was a little less original, but was neat. Whereas but like had good mechanics. Whereas I feel that Concrete Genie was perhaps a little bit more ambitious and had more ideas, but
The motion controls sucked also.
Oh my god, I hated the motion controls for that game. And I mean, I figured I didn't check, but I was like, man, it sucks that they had the motion controls and that was the default. Like it sucked so much to use that. So, and yeah, the story was nothing super exciting either. Like I didn't really care at all. So I don't know. For me, it was a good PlayStation Plus game. It was a good, 5-6 hours. Like once again, we talk about this idea of games knowing what they are and not overstaying their welcome. And I think once again, this game I think might have been close to overstaying its welcome. But I enjoyed it, but I'm going to kind of play it, forget it, and I don't think I'm going to come back to it ever again.
And I mean, it was free for most people, so it's not exactly a burner either. If you got this at launch, you might have been disappointed, but...
Yeah, I mean, I think once again, they did a good job in terms of, I think they only charged $40 when this came out.
Although I would say, to be fair, if you bought Concrete Genie at launch, you probably are the kind of person that would be into those games, because I don't think that's the kind of game that you just instinctively go, I'm going to play that at launch. I think you know what you're walking into with that kind of a game.
Yeah, it doesn't present itself as anything else, but yeah.
It is a games as an art kind of game. It's not pretending to be like a 10 out of 10 like friggin' like AAA game. It's an art game. Like we can all see that from how it's designed.
Yeah, it's definitely a niche game. And it's fine. Like that's fine for what it is. And I enjoyed it for what it was. Final score? I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. Yeah. Maybe 7. It's not bad. It's just not for me.
It's not bad. It's not great. It's not bad.
Yeah. I'm gonna put it this way, like the little quick summary. Good game, just not for me.
Yeah.
So yeah. Any closing thoughts in terms of Concrete Genie?
I mean, as I get close to the end of it, I mean, I don't know how close I am or not. Like, it's a fun little experience, but I mean, if you're looking for anything that's gonna be like, oh my god, like I'm gonna remember this, I would direct you to Coffee Talk, which I also reviewed on this podcast and does a far better job and does much less and is also a lot cheaper, I think. So,
yeah, that was I think that was our first Untimely review.
I believe it was, yes.
Yeah, so go check that out, ladies and gentlemen. Adam, that concludes our agenda. Any sort of closing thoughts or anything you want to come back to? Anything we forgot to mention?
What are we at here? We're at 53 minutes. You know what? I'm going to quickly just say something that I couldn't help but laugh at. The idea that because we've talked on the show about microtransactions before and how harmful they are. Mm-hmm. Can I just note how hilarious it is that we now found out that EA is directly selling those microtransactions without loot boxes to people? Like somebody in EA's office was selling actual player cards for 700 euros or more, which is like we're talking $1,000+ Canadian for one thing.
So let's quickly break this down. So was this like EA sponsored, or was this some guy like under the table?
This is under the counter. This isn't secret. Okay. This is like black market shit. And just apparently this has been going on for a while and nobody at EA ever noticed, which is... I find that hard to believe because this is the same company that thought it'd be a great idea to charge you $5 for nothing in terms of these packs to begin with. So...
Yeah. So break down. What are these cards for? Like I'm not familiar with this at
So
all. So
specifically, the story came out for FIFA. So it's the Ultimate Team stuff where it's like you get like you play like online and you get these like almost like trading cards, but they have no value in the open market. They're just in-game things. So like you can go and be like, oh, I like this player from Manchester United. Well, this player may be one of the best players in football, so it's really hard to get him because he's a really high overall player and he's also pretty rare. So if you want him, it's going to be pretty low odds to get him, which means you might have to spend hundreds, if not more than that, of dollars worth of packs to maybe open one. Whereas apparently in this story, somebody, we assume at EA, was selling these cards like just, I guess, the code that unlocks them for like a massive sum of money. And some of the listed prices were like 700 plus euros, which comes out to almost $1,000 Canadian. So I think there were some numbers they were popping out that was like more than $2,000, which is insane.
Do we know how many how many of these cards were sold?
We're to assume it wasn't one. We're meant to assume it was definitely a few. It was quite a few. So this is probably something that's been going on for a while because they've been doing this mode for years. Like this is like 10 years probably they've been doing this. So it's probably not out of the realm of possibility to say that for about a decade now, somebody's been making a lot of money on the side by really suckering in like gambling addicted gamers who just got tired of spending so much money on these cards.
It's
and
also
just wanted that Pele or wanted that Cristiano Ronaldo or whatever.
Yeah, I was gonna say like this is kind of speaks to the fact of like how much people are willing to spend on these microtransactions where $700 seems like a steal. That it's like, yeah, that's worth it for me.
It's the scary part. I don't know what's worse to me, the fact that somebody was doing this or that somebody was willing to buy it. I think the latter is probably worse because that's fucking up somebody's bank account. Because you hear all the stories of people like going bankrupt over this shit, or like parents finding like $3,000 on their credit cards because their kid got a hold of it. Like there's all these horror stories that you hear. And then when this comes out, it just makes it even worse because now people are hearing, oh, wait, all I had to do was spend $700 and I would have gotten it? I wish I'd known after I spent $2,000 on packs that gave me nothing.
Yeah.
Like it's the same thing of like people when they used to go to card stores for like Magic the Gathering or Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon, and after opening, like buying a box of booster packs and realizing I could have just spent $20 and got that Charizard. Like, you know, it's that kind of thing.
$20 for a Charizard. No. Charizard was $150. I remember that.
I'm literally just spitballing at this point. No, I have no idea.
Honestly, I can 100% quote on this. So I mean, I'm from a small town, so like we only had one gaming store.
So maybe your store was just really gouging the shit out of you.
No, so I don't really know. Like I was a dumb kid. We really didn't have internet, and like there was nowhere else you're gonna go. Where are you gonna go buy a Charizard? Walmart? No. So it was like this. It's the funniest little story. I remember this so clearly. So it was like basically our gaming store, and it sold like Magic the Gathering. It sold Pokemon cards, and it had like a couple like this was before like nerd stores and like geek stores and stuff were an actual thing. Like this was like 96, 97. So like you didn't really have a lot of these stores, and it was called Forgotten Heroes, and it was literally like so tiny, like I would say maybe 500 square feet, maybe. And it was just this one hallway with a counter. And I remember that they always had a Charizard, and it was like 125 to like $150 for one. And I always wanted one, and I was like, I was a dumb kid. I had no money, and like my parents were like, we're not spending $150 on a playing card, which in hindsight probably a good idea, but at the time it really sucked as a kid. So yeah, I can 100% confirm that Charizards were $150 at least in my hometown.
So it's that same kind of thing. It's why I'm really thankful that I didn't get big into trading cards as a kid. I did for a little bit, and I probably spent still more money than I wanted to on that. But it wasn't like, oh my god, I just wasted so much. And I could sell those cards that I still own if I wanted to. So
I was gonna say, how was you as a millennial? How did you get past the whole Pokemon trading card? Or like, and if not Pokemon, how did you get like past Magic and everything like
that?
Well,
Pokemon was easy because after Gold and Silver, I didn't give a shit about Pokemon, so it was fine for me.
Yeah.
Magic the Gathering didn't take long. Magic didn't take long because I sucked at it, so that wasn't too difficult. Yeah. Yu-Gi-Oh was the one I was decent at, and then it was the same thing. I'd go to tournaments and get priced out because you'd be playing the kids that spend hundreds of dollars on shit, or sorry, their parents spent hundreds of dollars on it. Or like the one creepy guy in his like 30s who owned like literally every card and just bounced the shit out of everybody.
Yeah,
and I know, and I'm saying that lovingly as somebody who's in his 30s now, but like. See, being like around a bunch of like 10 to 18-year-olds and the one guy who's like clearly double all our ages, like just trashing all of us, it was a bit weird in retrospect.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I was just gonna say, like, there is no way that that we are the same age and we're both millennials, and you got past that whole trading card phase unscathed.
I
And
was
yeah,
too busy like walking an hour to my local EB to play Kingdom Hearts. Like that I was too busy on my PlayStation 2. I didn't have time to go socialize with kids.
I was too busy playing video games and making out with girls for me to be playing those trading card
Well, no,
games.
no, no, I didn't say the latter half at that point. No. That part definitely wasn't true. I didn't have a body
Yeah,
pillow to use at that point.
yeah, yeah. Girls were not super impressed to see your Blastoise, playing card. So
I don't even remember. I have a couple of Pokemon cards. And I don't even know which ones I have. That's
yeah.
how old it is. I probably can remember more of the Star Wars trading card game cards that I have than Pokemon.
Oh my god, I had those too. I was a sucker for those things.
I literally just bought the starter packs and that was it because I realized, oh wait, no one plays this. Why would I spend any more money on it?
100%. I think I bought those and I bought like a couple booster packs, but like the only place that we could buy those places were Forgotten Heroes and Zellers. That was like the two places to get playing cards because
At least that was the
we did
beauty
not
with
have
some
any
of those.
games.
You
We didn't
realize
have
pretty
a
quickly that no one was buying them because they were all too busy playing one of the three in Pokemon, Magic, or Yu-Gi-Oh! So you didn't have to worry about it.
Exactly. All right, Adam. Let's leave it there for another week. I think that's a good place for us to end.
The millennial woes will come another day.
Yeah, yeah. Ramblings of old millennials. All right. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. This has been another episode of the PixelPlay podcast. Once again, if you liked what you hear, if you're new to us and you're enjoying this, please hit subscribe. We post every week. If you've been around a while, we appreciate you. Please keep liking, subscribing, leaving feedback and reviews. We greatly appreciate it. If you want to email us questions, topics of the show, that could be done at pixelplaypodcast@gmail.com. We are found on YouTube at PixelPlay Podcast on YouTube, and our social media is PixelPlay, and we are basically
Pixel Play
posted
Cast.
everywhere now. Sorry?
Pixel Play Cast.
Oh, did we get? Oh, sorry, PixelPlay Cast. That's where we are on our social medias, and you can find us on basically anywhere that you get your podcasts. Adam, any update on Apple?
Nope. It's just I'm not even getting answers back from Anchor on it. They're just like, oh, we'll get to it, and it's like, okay, fine.
They've gotten too big.
One
for us
day.
They're not returning our calls. One day.
Yeah,
One day once
we
we're
need
huge,
to,
they'll reach out
we've
to
been
us.
too we're too big. They don't have to work with it. They're like, they're gonna move to some other network anyway.
For sure. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen,
We're about to get signed by Spotify anyway and join Joe Rogan. You know.
watch out, Joe. We're coming for you.
Speaking of Joe Rogan, because it's a bad segue. We are gonna potentially be live on our next show. So
Yeah. So I forgot to mention that. So, ladies and gentlemen, next week on March 23rd, 20. Yeah. We record this typically. Are we gonna do this on the 17th or on the 16th? Excuse me. Are we gonna do this on the 23rd or the 24th?
I mean, I would assume the 23rd. That would be the Tuesday.
Okay. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, next Tuesday, which is when we typically record. So Tuesday, March 23rd, we are going to be recording this live on Twitch. So if you want to join us, it'll be our 10th episode. So feel free to come and join us in the chat. You can find us. We're going to be using Adam's Twitch channel for now. So that's going to be at CSRadical. Feel free to join us at 8 o'clock. We're going to be doing our typical podcast, but we're happy to take in questions, respond to the audience. So feel free to join us. We'd be happy to have you guys. Adam, anything you want to add?
Be there or be square? Wait, is
Nailed
it
it.
X? Sorry, is it X on Xbox controllers? I gotta be careful on what I say because people might not understand what square is.
All right. Well, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. We will see you next week. Bye for now.